Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of this portrait series. So we've done quite a lot in the last part. We've done quite a lot on the hair, darkened up those lips, done a few shadows. Like I was saying in the previous part, I wasn't too happy with some of the areas where I used the brown. I should have used like a bit of a purpley colour, but it's dried okay. It's not really noticeable. It's just something, you know, for future reference. So here I've mixed some of the Quin rose colour and I'm mixing a little bit of the sap green. So this is the purple colour that I was talking about in part 2 that maybe I should have used around the mouth there, on the side of the nose and around that right eye as well. So that's the colour that I was saying to use. So it's the Quin rose and sap green. It makes a nice, like a darker skin colour that's really, really good for shadows. I'm just mixing a little bit more green in it, just to make it more of on the maroony brown side rather than the pink side. Just add a little bit more water to it. So I've just got one of these little syringes out of a medicine bottle, my children's medicine bottle. Just sometimes it's easier if you want to drop a little bit of water into, a lot of water into a mix, rather than keep going back and forth with your brush. You can add, you know, a mil or 2 mils of water into a mix really, really easily. So I'm still not happy with the tone. I've gotten a bit more of a pinky shade, so it's important to have a piece of scrap paper next to you. You're never going to get the skin tone perfect first time, so you do want to do some little swatches and yeah, just keep mixing until you're happy. So I think here I was just trying to make a bit more of a mix because I'm going to do the face with it. So I think I've rather than wanting to change the tone of it, I think it was more, I wanted to mix more of the mixture. So I've added a bit more Quin rose and the sap green. Still looks a bit more on the brown side on that swatch, so I'm adding a little bit more pink. That's going a little bit more on the purpley side. So I'm going to stop there. So I'm quite happy with that tone. So I'm going to stick with this brush, I think. This is the Winsor & Newton foundation brush in the size 5. It's really good for blending, so it's a bit of a firmer edge to it. I'm just going to go over all these shadows and just blend those into the skin. So I'm picking out all those dark areas that I can see on the photograph. I can even exaggerate the shadows a little bit more. Her face is in quite bright light, so the shadows aren't really that dark. But yeah, so I can exaggerate those if I want to. So with a clean damp brush, I'm just blending them lines that I've drawn on just into that skin next to it. So there's a nice smooth transition across the face. I don't want any lines appearing or anything like that. Her skin's hasn't got much texture or anything, so I want to keep it as smooth as possible. I'm also making the paper damp as well so that I can drop more paint in if I need to. So I'm just going all the way around the hairline there, all those shadows that I've already put the brown on. I'm just going over with this purple colour just to change the tone because I wasn't happy with it. I think that's looking a lot better now, being this like purpley brown colour rather than just, you know, a neutral brown colour. And just soften the edges of those shadows. We've put quite a lot of mix on the hair so far, so I think I have just disturbed a little bit on that hair that's coming across the face. I have disturbed it a little bit by going too close to it. You can reawaken watercolour, so even when it's fully dry, sometimes especially those darker colours can actually start to come off when you go close to it with, you know, with another colour or a brush or anything like that. So just be aware of that when you're going over these dark areas. Just be very, very delicate about it. seen a little bit of a mistake there, so I'm just yeah, just getting rid of that. So you can just be very, very delicate with your brush here when you're dropping paint in. You don't want to disturb any of those lovely little hairs that you've popped on. You don't want to lighten them up or disturb those. So I'm just dropping a little bit of this colour into those darker shadows again on the ear. Kind of following the face round, gone from the left side all the way over the top of the forehead there and all the way down the other hairline on the right side there, so I'm down onto the neck, just following that down. Very careful with those hairs that you've drawn. Again, it looks like I am disturbing that paint a little bit, which is annoying, but we can always go over that later anyway. So I've drawn that line on there, I'm just tickling the edges just to blend that into the skin. While it's still damp, I'm just dropping a little bit more paint on just to darken the darkest areas. Just dropping a little bit of paint in there on this like collarbone area, just to darken the skin there where the material at the top would cause a bit of a shadow, and just tickling the edges of that and just blending that in as well. Just bringing that shadow down a little bit. The changes in value on the neck are very subtle. So just dried and clean and dried the brush, and then just tickle the edges in of that shadow that I've drew on there, and just trying to blend that in to soften it. Just getting the shape of the collarbone in there, just trying to get these shadows in the right place. Okay, I'm going to leave the neck for now. I'm going to start darkening up some shadows over the eyes here. So I'm still using that Quinrose sap green colour. So she still looks a little bit strange because she hasn't got any eyelashes as yet. So once we draw those eyelashes in, she'll look much more realistic, and maybe darken the eyes up a little bit and put some highlights in the eyes and the iris of the eyes. So usually have these little highlights on that brow bone as well, so leave those in. Make sure you keep a little bit highlighted on that edge there, just where those brow bones stick out a little bit, they hit a bit more light. Same on the left there, there's like a little highlight on there, like the middle area there's highlighted in between the shadows. Just going to put some shadows under the eyes here as well. Apologies for the noise in the background. There's the dog's again. He's got a treat in the kennel. He's just, yeah, licking at something on his bed. So there's a nice shadow under the eye there I've just popped in. Just darken up those eyelids on that left side. And I'm just trying to blend everything out just to make sure it's all nice and smooth. Nice smooth transition between the darks and lights. So again, coming to this nose again, just trying to figure out how I can make it look a little bit more like it's got some shape to it. It's quite hard to see on the photograph where, you know, the actual shape of that left side of the nostril and things. Maybe because it's probably AI, it just hasn't got it quite right on the photograph. Again, that Cupid's bow just doesn't look like it's the right shape. And then that shadow there I wasn't happy with either. I'm just trying to make these little fine adjustments just to make it look a little bit better. Just darken up the chin a little bit. And underneath the lips there, but that shadow that's cast, darken that up as well. Onto this right eye now, I'm going to just put some more shadows under there, get those little creases in that I can see under the eye, those little crease lines, wrinkles. Just trying to get those shadows in the right place, just constantly looking at that reference photo. And just blend that shadow out again. Need to soften the edge on that shadow there. It looks a little bit too much of a harsh line there on that shadow where the hair is. So here I'm just trying to give a little bit more shape to this nose on this right side here. So adding a few shadows. It's got to be very subtle because her face is so much in the light there. There's not much shadow on this side of the face, so I'm just being very delicate about it, being very subtle. Just a slight, slight transition from that bright colour into just a slightly darker shade, skin tone. By popping a little bit of paint on there, just gives a little bit more shape to that nose. It brings out of the page a little bit, looks less flat on the page. Just going over the shadows again. So obviously your painting's going to be a lot different than my one, so you just work across your face, just darkening the shadows up using the techniques that I'm using, and then obviously just your shadows will be maybe slightly darker or slightly lighter, so you just adjust those accordingly. So if they need to be darkened up, then just darken those up. If they're dark enough, then obviously just leave them. You might not have to do what I'm doing exactly as I'm doing it at this stage. So I'm going to mix more of this Squin Rose colour, just a tiny amount, a little bit of the Pyrrole Red. A little bit of water to that as well. A little bit more red. And a little bit more rose. So I'm just just trying to change the colour of these lips a little bit, just add a little bit more colour on there. I've added a little bit more of that French ultramarine blue just to tone it down a little bit, make it a bit more of a purpley colour. So you'll have to adjust just as you go, whichever colour you prefer to put on the lips. So there's no hard fast rule, you can do a different shade of lip than what I'm doing. You can just use the Quin Rose if you want to, if you've got that on your palette. Just darken up certain areas. Just dropping a little bit more paint on there. See, I'm just waking up that colour that we used earlier on, you know, that I think it was sepia and neutral tint. So I'm just adding a bit of water to that just to waken that up. Adding a little bit more neutral tint just to darken it and thicken it, because I've added some water, so it's going to be a little bit thinner. And again, I'm going to do some hair strands, so in those darkest areas that I can see with this dark colour, just to build up those layers, add a bit more texture. Just following that hair direction again. Sticking with this Winsor & Newton brush size 5. Just darkening up the roots. Not going over those highlighted areas now as much. So again, I'll just let this footage run because I'm doing hair. Just follow along, just follow what I'm doing. If you have any questions, pop those in the comments. I'll be happy to answer anything. So with this same colour, this colour that I've used on the hair, I'm just going over the eyebrows again. This is the Silver Black Velvet brush in the size 2. It's quite a thin brush. Mostly use this for eyelashes and eyebrows really. It's quite a soft brush, so it bends quite easily. So yeah, it's not really good for blending or anything like that, but it's okay for really thin detail hairs. Just darken those eyebrows up to match the darkest hair. Just make sure I get the shape right, the thickness right. It's always better to start off thin, and then you can, expand outwards, either the top or the bottom of the eyebrow to bring it down closer to the eye, or to lift it up a little bit, change the shape of it. So always start off a bit thinner. Again, the eyebrows don't have to be perfect, to match the shape in the photograph. So just as close as you can will be fine. Just a tiny little bit in the ear, just to darken that crease up, or that fold. Just dropping a little bit of paint under the lip there, just to darken that up. You can see there, this brush does bend quite a bit. Don't really like it for blending and things. It's more, yeah, it's okay for eyebrows and eyelashes, or for pupils maybe, or nostrils, but anything other than that, I tend to use a different brush really. So here I'm going to start doing some eyelashes, so I'm just having a little practice on the paper. I'm using the same colour as what I've done for the hair and the eyebrows, this dark neutral tint sepia colour. Just make sure that's dry enough to do. You can still see some pencil lines under there, so I'm just following that line right across the top of the eye. So very careful, nice and slow. So I'm trying to get like a nice flick with the brush, so start off thick at the root of the eyelashes, and then it flicks up. It's quite hard for me to do without covering the eyelashes as I'm doing. I'm trying my best not to, but sometimes I have to just get this certain angle where I can flick up from that root line there that I've drawn across, that line that all the eyelashes come out of, and I'm just doing a little flick just so that the eyelashes come to a bit of a point. So apologies again for my hand being in the way. The more eyelashes that you do, the easier these become. Just follow what you see as close as you can. They don't have to be perfect. They crisscross, and some of them are thicker. Sometimes the eyelashes are quite short. Sometimes they're quite long. It depends on the photograph. So just go with what you see. Hope you get the idea of what I've done there. Again, it starts off when you're using the brush, it starts thicker and then goes thin. So for me to do it, from the end of the hair of the eyelash, and then move that into the line, it's going to be thicker at the end, and I want it to be thinner at the end. I want it to come to a point. So I've had to get a certain angle here. So my apologies. I'm going to sort this out. I did loads and loads of videos. You see loads and loads of paintings and videos, and then when I come to edit them, most of them have got my hand in the way when I'm doing eyelashes, so I apologise for that. In future videos, once I've uploaded this lot, and when I start painting some more portraits, I will make sure that I'm filming at a different angle as well, so that you will get a better view of me doing the eyelashes. So these bottom lashes here, they're very few and far between, so I'm not going to do too much on this bottom lip of the eye here. Just a couple of little hairs coming off it. So this will all lighten up. I'll have to go over it again, I'm assuming, because it will lighten up. Just don't be too heavy-handed around this eye here. It's quite a lot of shadow, so I am, trying to pop them shadow areas in where I see them. I'm going to pop a little bit of pink or grey onto the eyeball as well, because it shouldn't be really, really white like that, so I'm going to pop a bit of colour on that as well. Got to redo those irises as well, because they just look like they're one colour, and usually the iris has got like a darker ring, and then obviously the pupil in the centre, and then a little bit of a lighter area between that pupil and the outer edge, so I'm going to draw that in as well. So I've been quite delicate with those bottom lashes. Again, I'm just trying to get the shadow on this left side here right. I'm struggling with this brush, I think, as well. It keeps bending. I think I'm actually using a bit of that Quin Rose, the colour that I used for the lips there, just the watery mix that I had on my palette. I'm just doing a little bit of that in the corner, because most of the eyes, when you see eyes, they've got a little bit of red in them just from blood vessels that are in the corner of the eyes as well, so I'm just popping a little bit of that on there. Just blending that in. Bit on the right there as well, so it's just a watery mix of what I used on the lips, the last colour that I used on the lips. So that looks a little bit better, less flat. So I'm just taking some French ultramarine blue here. And I'm going to darken that outer circle on the iris, like I've just said. Mixing a little bit of sap green in there just to make it a bit of a bluey green colour. Gone a little bit too far on the green side, so I'm just going to add a little bit more blue. I want it to be nice and thick anyway. So it's quite a deep blue that I've got there. And I'm just going to draw that circle in. So the iris, you can see almost a full circle, it's just the top that's cut off. Usually you can't see the top half of the iris unless the expression in the photograph is someone that looks really surprised. I think I've said that before, it's not very often, but usually you can see either neither the top or the bottom, or just the bottom part of the circle. So just make sure you get that shape of the iris in. Don't draw more than what you can see, don't draw less than what you can see, just try and get that shape right. If you can see near enough the whole of the iris, then do what I'm doing here. If the person in the photograph is laughing or smiling, then you'll see even less of the iris, so you'll see that the top and the bottom of the iris is probably cut off and hidden under the top and the bottom eyelid. So just keep that in mind when you're drawing the iris. How much of it you can see will affect how the expression on the face looks. So I've put that circle there, I'm just wetting and drying the brush, and then I'm just tickling the edges in just to bring that colour in. These eyes will look more alive when we put a little bit of white in them as well. It's made quite a difference just by having a bit of pink on the whites of the eyes too, so it's starting to look a little bit more realistic, a little bit less flat on the page. So the same on this left eye, I'm going to wash and dry that brush so it's a little bit damp. I'm just going to tickle the edges of this this line that I've drawn in, just to bring that colour into the centre. Again, it's not the best brush for blending this one, it's too soft. So the sun has come right over in the windows above me there, so I'm trying to block it from the camera as much as I can, but every time I move my head the sun shines onto the painting, so I apologise for that. Certain times of the day the sun comes from above, and in our extension there's skylights, so that the sun does shine down. We're going to let this dry anyway, so yeah, we'll carry on in a bit. We'll let that dry. Okay, so now all those areas are dry now. We're going to just add a few more final details before we finish. We've got about 12-13 minutes left of this tutorial now. We're nearly done. I'm just going to do another layer on the eyelashes, and then I'm going to start adding some highlights with an opaque white. So I'm just adding a little bit more neutral tint here to that sepia neutral tint mix that we used on the hair earlier, just to darken that up. So I added a little bit more water to it first, and then I've added some neutral tint just to darken that up. So I'm taking this Michael Klein size 2 brush. I don't know why I picked this brush. I should have stuck with the silver black velvet brush size 2 for the eyelashes. The end of this brush is a little bit blunt now, so I don't know why I picked this up. So if you've got hopefully you've got like a nice little thin brush that you can do eyelashes with. So yeah, I don't recommend you using this brush. I think initially I was just going to go over the outer edge of this iris, but then I did carry on and do the eyelashes with it, and I think they went on a little bit too thick. But yeah, you just use whatever brush you prefer to do eyelashes with. So I'm just darkening those outer edges of the iris there. So the brown and the blue go quite nicely together. Sometimes just using dark blue on the outer, outer iris, or dark green, or whatever eye colour there is. Sometimes it is worth just going over with a darker, like a neutral tint or a sepia just on that outer edge. It does go quite well with greens and blues. So you can see here the eyelashes have come out too thick here. I should have used the different brush. I'm not sure if I changed my mind and I realise what I've done. Yeah, I have. So I've decided that was a silly idea to use that and carry on with that brush, so I'm just removing that away. And then I'll swap to this silver black velvet brush in the size 2, just because it can give nice thin lines for eyelashes. Not much good for anything else really, but yeah, for eyelashes it's okay. So again, my apologies for covering up what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to make the top thinner, the top of that eyelash thinner. So it's all a learning curve really, isn't it? You end up with like having your favourite brushes and your favourite paints, your favourite paper. You've just got to find your preferences. What works for somebody else doesn't necessarily work for you. So I did make a bit of a mess up on those eyelashes, I feel, looking back now. You don't really notice too much on the end result, but yeah, I should have just carried on with this thinner brush, because I think I've just put it on too dark, and now I can't remove it. So hopefully that left eye will look a little bit better. Looks like she's got a lot of mascara on her eyelashes, and they've like clumped together. So I'm just doing this sweeping motion with the brush. I'm just moving from that line where the eyelashes come out of, and I'm just swiping up just to try and get a thin edge, so that looks better than that right eye. I just wanted to go over them really, make them a little bit darker before I add any highlights. Making the roots thicker as well. Trying to get a little bit more detail on that shadow in the corner of the eye there. You can't really see any details of the eyelashes on that eye, but just, you know, kind of indicate that they are there. Just darken up the nostril. So yeah, this end part is just darkening up the darkest bits, and then we'll put some highlights on the lightest bits. Just blending that outer edge of the iris in over the blue. So I've let it dry for a few minutes and then just tickling the edges of it. So here I'm just taking this white. This is probably the best one I've found. It's the Winsor & Newton Professional, and it's titanium white. It's quite an opaque one. It's near enough like a gouache or something, but yeah, it's really good for highlights. So what I tend to do, rather than, you know, put a blob onto the actual palette and waste paint because I always end up throwing it away, I usually just get a little bit on the end of the brush and then just dab that onto the palette. So I'm just putting a few little white highlights here onto the iris. I'm using this Black Velvet brush size 2 again, just because the point is very, very fine. Just putting a few little dots on this right eye, and then I'm going to try and do the same in the same position on the left as well, just to match those eyes up. Just going to put a little bit here just on the waterline, just so it could look like, you know, there's a little bit of moisture there. I've gone onto the actual lip there, so I'm just going to clean and dry that brush, and then I'm just going to tickle that away just off that little waterline there on the eye. So even with these fine brushes, getting into these tiny little details, you can still mess up. Brighten the highlights up that's on the end of the nose there, because I kind of got a little bit lost. Just going to get a little bit more paint. So I've got a little bit of a watery mix of the white, and then I've got a thicker mix there just above it. So again, just trying to brighten that highlight up on the nose there, and that nice little highlight that's going down near enough the centre of the nose as well, just to give a bit of shape to the nose. So you can have fun with this white. You just pop it where you think could need a bit of brightening up. So around the edge of the lips there, you can put some highlights on the teeth, put some highlights on the whites of the eyes. I always enjoy this bit because it means that I've completed the painting, so comes the end. So some of the highlights are quite subtle, and you can use the watery mix for those just to brighten up areas, and then use the more opaque white on the palette there just to brighten up certain areas. So around the lip there, on that right side, I felt like it was a little bit too dark, that shadow that I put in there, so I've just brightened that up with a bit of the white. Of course, watercolour, it dries lighter, so that's still the case with the white, and also, you know, black or neutral tint. So that's why I had to go over those darkest areas on the eyelashes and things a couple of times, and the pupils and things, and then you might have to do this with the white as well. So I found a nice little technique that works for me is to put a little bit of that white on the skin when it needs to be more of a subtle highlight, and then just dab it with my finger, similar to, you know, if you were doing something with makeup and you were using a concealer or something like that. That's kind of the technique that I've been using, and it seems to work. So I'm just dropping a few little highlights between some of these eyelashes as well, around this eye here. again on that waterline. Just brighten those teeth up a little bit. Put a little bit too much on those teeth there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean the brush and then just tickle that off that lip. They just smudge a little bit onto that pink lip, which we don't want. Highlighting this Cupid's bow area here. Just not happy with that shadow on that nose at all, the Cupid's bow and that shadow on the left side of the face. It just stands out to me. It's something that looks not right about it. Yeah, obviously with watercolour you can't really rub anything out. Once it's dry, it's dry. So you just have to proceed. I'm glad that I carried on with the painting. I worked hard on it, spent quite a few hours on it. I think it turns out okay. There's obviously things that I would like to change, like I said at the start. There's areas that I'm quite happy with, so I like the hair and I like the shadows on the face along the hairline there. Yeah, so the skin tone I like that I got, the pink and the purpley skin tones. Then obviously I used that brown on some of the shadows which I shouldn't have used. I like the lip colour. So yeah, just things I like about the painting, and there's things I don't like, but I always kind of record. Obviously I've got these videos to go back and look at, but I also record all the colours that I used, that worked, and I've got a list so that when I start a new painting, I can think back to that portrait, and then I can see what colours I used on the skin, on the lips, on the hair, and then I can replicate that on future paintings as well, so it's quite handy to do that. The next tutorial that I'm going to upload is of a lady with darker skin, and she's got this lovely curly black hair, so that skin tone was completely different as well. I was using a lot of burnt sienna, burnt umber, things like that, so that's quite a nice one to do, just to do something different. She had these lovely like purpley pink cheeks as well to do. So this lady here's got really pale Caucasian skin. She's got, she's in a bright light as well, so there's not much shadow or anything like that, so it's nice to just do different paintings, different skin tones. So I'm just brightening up this iris here in the centre between that outer line and the pupil. So it looks okay from a distance. So this is that Quin Rose, Pyrrole Red and French Ultramarine Blue mix. Just dropping a little bit more on the outer edges of these lips, just to darken certain areas up, darken those little lines up on the lips, the wrinkles up. Just be careful because you have put a little bit of white on the lip not long ago, so just be careful you don't smudge that white. So I felt like that was a good place to stop working on this painting. I felt like it was finished. I really enjoyed working on this painting. I hope you did too. I'd love you to share any versions of it on social media and tag me in it. I'd really appreciate that. I'd love to see your work, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye bye.